All right. Now that we've gotten through, it's more than just nuggets for media day. That was a lot.
Hmm.
Let's talk about Julian Strawther on the second edition of our Nuggets Rewind series. You and I wanted to talk about one of the young players who is potentially in the running to get that starting spot. Um, and Malone obviously talked about Christian Brown and Julian Strawther for that. And Julian is a player that we didn't get to see, a young player at least that we saw the least of last year because he had that midseason knee injury, but he was showing some interesting promise before then. And one of the games where he really shined was this game in December versus the Atlanta Hawks, so December 11th last year. I just wanted to give some of my overall thoughts on the rest of the team before we jump into Julian's game. I thought it was actually a pretty creative game offensively from both teams. This was a point in the season where the Hawks were a top 10 offense. I think they were actually a top 5 offense for a large stretch of the early part of the season. And the Nuggets were also, because it's versus the Atlanta Hawks defense, like they just looked very comfortable offensively. The ball was moving. They were running a lot of sets. Um, I thought that Jamal looked amazing in this game. For context, he had been coming off of his first, stint away from the team because he'd had, or at least off the floor, he'd had the hamstring injury, and he'd come back and been back probably for I think 2 or 3 weeks at that point. He looked so spry on both ends of the floor. Like, he was just really active. He was everywhere. So that was really cool. He actually sprains one of his ankles in the middle of this game. I think he had sprained the other ankle earlier, like a few weeks earlier, but was still like playing because it wasn't that bad. And then he like steps on Jokic's foot on a play or something and sprains the other ankle in the middle of this game. That was really annoying. Um, this was another game where I didn't really feel too much of KCP's impact on either end. I don't know if it was just because it was midseason or whatever. And I just have a note here that I'm like, I swear we're not picking these games on purpose. Talked about that same thing from the
Yeah.
Boston Celtics game. And it was just interesting to see that again because those are probably the types of games that the front office was looking at when they're like, is he actually essential? I think yes. Um, but obviously they thought otherwise.
Yeah.
Um,
He only had 6 attempts in the game, but he had
yeah.
8 free throw attempts. So he was
KCP
getting to
did?
the line. Yeah. Uh,
Oh, that must have been from all the texts or something. I do not remember that.
oh, that could be. Yeah. They just like
There were a
let him
lot
take
of
those
texts
down.
in this game. It was really stilted officiating. It was also
Hmm.
bad officiating. There were multiple calls overturned
Yeah.
from both teams. It was a Ben
But
Taylor
it
game.
is good to look at Julian in this game since KCP didn't have a lot of attempts, and that's what it's going to be like for Julian. Obviously, there's 0 attempts for KCP now. So,
There was a moment in this game I just wanted to shout out from Zeke Nashi where he bodies Onyeka Okongwu, and
oh,
I was like, "Oh, that's bad news for Onyeka Okongwu. I'm sorry.
hmm,
You should
I
not be getting
remember that.
bodied by
Yeah.
Zeke Nashi." Super sloppy game to close. That was because of the starters, really. Like the bench had blown a lead or part of a lead, and the starters came in and proceeded to blow even more of the lead and turned a game into a clutch game even when it didn't need to be. But the shining star of this game, and I hate to use the verbiage from PHNX Suns because they like to use that,
Mm,
but Julian was like on fire in this game. 22 points, 2 assists, 5 steals,
yeah.
right?
I think
He
that's why
looked,
we picked this game. This
yeah, he looked like
defense.
he belonged on the floor. He was moving around the floor against the zone defense that Atlanta was coming out. Like, he just knows like where to be on offense, and he wasn't ever like in the wrong place or wasn't moving when he was supposed to be. And he doesn't hold the ball too long. I think that's really important
Hmm.
because Michael Malone talked about who's going to win the starting job. It's going to be who complements the starters, and that's going to be on both ends of the floor, right? Not that I think that Julian would be a good fit with the starters just because he can shoot, but he also doesn't hold the ball too long, and he doesn't seem to be somebody that like he doesn't like lose his vigilance when there's like a stretch where he doesn't touch the ball, right? And he got a stupid amount of burn in this game, right?
Yeah.
That was the other thing about this one is that he plays 28 minutes. In the first half, Michael Malone accidentally plays him 16 straight game minutes. And even the broadcast is talking about like he finally starts missing shots, and they're like, oh, I think he's tired, like he needs to go sit now.
Yeah.
But part of that is because Jamal goes out after he sprains his ankle. MPJ comes in to play the 4, which we talked a little bit about. Maybe they're going to look at doing that more this year. And then MPJ had to sit for a bit before he came back in, and that's why Julian he had this extended run in the first half, which I thought was interesting.
It was a welcome accident because he got 11 attempts from 3, so that was a lot, and he hit 6 of them and had a great game on both sides of the ball. Some like awkward little maybe mistakes or miscommunications, which we'll go over. Like no one's perfect, but that's also fun to look at and just be like, oh, Julian's gonna learn, and this is all gonna be more natural to him.
So Julian tries to make a play on the ball. This is like his first defensive possession in this game, and it doesn't work out because Capella gets the dunk anyway. But the Nuggets were trying to be aggressive on the ball, and Jokic is working to recover, but doesn't do it in time. And Julian sees that and tries to make a play on the ball, doesn't. Yeah. But
he
that just kind of
almost disrupted it. But it was like a cool low man little rotation there. Not quite, but it was close.
Right, and he didn't have to do it.
Yeah.
Right, like clearly Jokic is trying to hedge and recover, and right. Anyway. So let's bring in the 5 steals because he was an excellent low man in this game with his off-ball vigilance. If you see here, he's just like constantly moving, keeping an eye on ball and man, and then is able to intercept that pass from Trey.
Entry pass, yeah. He was like stuck down on the baseline a lot in this game. Maybe unsure of when he was supposed to switch off to someone in the corner or not, or stay. And like he ended up not like. I don't know who this player is, but he leaves the dunker spot and goes out to the corner, and he kind of takes the man and replaces him, and then disrupts the entry pass. Just like good reads, like good instincts.
I think that was a good. Yeah, I thought that was good communication there. On this next one, Julian's just playing free safety outright, helping way off the corner. Then on the next clip, he's actually going to get sealed in the post. Here on that, it was a bad switch, but then he's able to use his length to get that deflection, and then it results in a steal for the team.
Watching these clips just real quickly kind of reminded me of like watching early Michael Porter Jr. and everyone would complain about how he was so terrible at defense, where like he'd let someone dribble by him or he'd kind of make a mistake, but his athleticism and length, he could kind of catch up to the play and make a play. Like that one, he was almost like late to the switch and maybe was getting too sealed, but he's long arms, so he can like reach around and disrupt the play, and you're like almost not expecting it.
So the very next clip after this that's kind of exactly what happens. Trey gets by him on this bad closeout.
Trey should have shot that.
And there's actually 2 shot fake. Trey actually does like a good thing here. He tries to do a little give and go with Bogey.
Yeah.
And then Julian is able to disrupt it. That was really like great on his part because he's watching Bogdanovich after Trey gives him the ball, so he knows where the ball's going to go after that instead of just watching Trey, because I think he would have missed it otherwise.
Yeah.
And then here he's diving for a loose ball, and he actually gets a foul on Sadiq Bey here.
Yeah, that was great.
As a result of it. But then
those
it was
like the Malone hustle plays that he always wants to see.
And Julian is like, he's really good at those, right? He was known as a shooter. Like that's what he was known for in the draft. Like he's a shooter. He's a wing shooter. But we saw it in Summer League last year. We saw it in Summer League this year. And we saw it in the regular season, how he really knows how to hustle. Do you want to bring up some of the defensive miscues here? The first one is the miscommunication from Wesley Matthews. So this is the second tab, I believe. Yeah. So he and Peyton are trying to switch here. They miscommunicate, and Wesley Matthews gets just an open.
And Julian's like, "Hey, what?" They both look upset with each other, P. Watt and Strawther, but
I don't know what was supposed to happen there, but whatever was didn't
happen.
Yeah. I think Peyton thought that Julian was hedging, and
just
Julian
one of
thought
those things. Yeah.
And let's go to right here. So Wesley Matthews actually misses from the wing here. I didn't really love that Julian wasn't able to force him to the
like ice it more.
Right, ice it more, like force him more toward AG. And I think that's a positioning problem. Right.
Yeah,
And
his
then
like Matthews is dribbling around him right here, and his body is completely facing the baseline. It's
yeah.
hard to rotate around that. But he stayed with him relatively well. But
Yeah, Julian, he's got more margin for error because of
yeah,
that
hmm
length on defense. But the foot speed is still a question, right? Like how often is he at the point of attack? That's something I was really looking for in this game, and there just weren't a lot of possessions where he had to guard the ball handler.
hmm
But the few that he did, it was like, okay, mixed bag,
That's
right?
would be really important for if he ever is going to step into the starting role. So,
Exactly. Exactly. He's playing too far off of bogey on the wing here.
mm,
I was like, that was just like not paying attention to the scouting reports. But
yeah,
he's trying to play free safety here
yeah, he
again.
had had success in this like spot in this role, but you know your
Way too off
personnel.
of way too far off of Bogdanovich. And he's able to come off the wing or
Yeah,
come off the spin down and
he has no chance of getting around that
shoot from the
screen
wing.
like to contest that shot, like
Bogey was
running
also
into it like that.
completely on fire in this game. He had 40 points.
Oh man.
And it wasn't just Julian guarding him the whole time, by the way, guys. This was just one of those examples.
hmm
Um, he was trying to be aggressive as a free safety, but you just have to be more disciplined on the scout. You have to stay attached to Bogey and let the rest of the team deal with everybody else if you're matched up with him.
So is this one you liked more where he's a little more active on
Right. So this was a nice defense to offense possession. So he's really active, moving around. I think Jamal gets credited for this
mm,
steal, and
that was
then
nice.
Uh, Julian is able to get that nice gift from the basketball gods with a swish,
Yeah.
transition
Oh
swish from
man,
the
Jamal
wing.
was so happy at when he made that shot.
Yeah, because it added to his assist total.
Yeah. Yeah, he had a couple of transition threes in this game. That was
He
just part of
absolutely
his
did.
game. So that's going to be really important for, playing with Russ, like in the second unit. Like, that's going to be money. I think if Russ is pushing the pace, if Julian can run with him and get in position for a shot,
He
it could be
likes to
great.
run to the wing
hmm
in transition, which is good. Like just first base. We don't have a lot of players that do that. Like it's basically just him and MPJ. Like a lot of guys try to run through the paint, especially Christian and Peyton. And especially with KCP out, Julian's that guy now that like when he's in, he's always going to be like spaced outward, and hopefully that helps with just creating lanes in transition for everybody else who might have the ball,
hmm
right? Um, let if you want to bring up the good offensive highlights, we can talk about some of his unconscious shooting, which included some more transition threes, as well as shots that he gets from some half court sets. So here he is in transition, runs to the wing, gets an open shot. He's like, "Oh look, open space on the wing. Let me just go there." And we got more of Jamal finding Julian, and
Oh,
then he's like, "Oh no, I bobbled the ball," and then like he was in a zone in this game.
yeah,
It's
that's
just like
interesting. He's not necessarily in the flow or in the catch and shoot textbook pattern, but because he bobbles the ball, but he's still able to collect it and just like fire and go in quick release. Good dribble handoff with Jokic
and
right
he
into
he
it.
he sets the screen to confuse the defense a bit and then is
Mm.
able to get like wide open. Like nobody
Yeah,
stays with him there because
which I.
they have to worry about AG on the cut. So he's
hmm
nice back screen for
Little,
AG
yeah,
here.
kind of.
And
And
then
Julian has size, so like running him or off of the screen into then like a zoom action where he's getting the
this is
handoff and then
this
shooting.
this is the same thing that they run for Jamal. So Jamal is actually just acting off ball as a spacer on that previous possession. It's interesting when you have Julian and MPJ running stuff together because like both defenders have to worry about both guys just rising up and firing right over them. So
Seriously, yeah,
Sadiq is not able to help on Julian's drive here
right.
because he's got to stick with MPJ, which I think that's an interesting dynamic that they could play with if MPJ
hmm
and Julian play together
If Mike's
more.
staggering and like at the four or something in a stagger lineup with Julian,
And I
um,
love how Julian just knifes in here. We saw him drive unslash a lot more in summer league, right? And playing next to even more spacers next to him when he's not the guy that has to be the spacer. If you have MPJ in those lineups, means that we get to see a little bit more of Julian's, driving game and his in between game, right? I don't think he attempted a floater in this game, actually, even.
Early on, I think it was his first shot attempt. It was a really long floater, and he missed
It
it.
didn't go in.
But
Okay.
yeah, his floater game, is something that he like says he's confident in, and I'm sure he'll go back to it. But that was a long floater, so
Let's
yeah.
actually talk about some of the bad offense. So, if you could get to the bad pass that he made to KCP, comes off a handoff with Jokic and starts to drive in, and then the paint's kind of crowded, whatever. So he tries to pass out, but I think he should have tried to score just because of the positioning of the defenders. Pass ends up with KCP, and then KCP drives in, and it results in a miss there. But there were just a couple of those reads where I thought he wasn't aggressive enough to score the ball, and it resulted in either a turnover or a bad shot.
Hmm.
So that was just one. The other one was actually Bogey getting an open three on the wing in transition because Julian takes a bad shot. I think he was trying to get free throws. That was just an example of bad offense leading to bad defense because obviously the opposing team gets to basically have a run out in transition. And when you have a shooter like Bogey who's on fire like he was in this game, it turns into a really big problem. But yeah, overall, this was a really good, encouraging game from Julian. This was only 2 months into his rookie season, right? Especially the off-ball defense, I think. Definitely still room for improvement, especially with communication. That's something that every team could get better at. Every player could get better at, especially on defense, though.
Mhm. One quick thing before we wrap up is I do like his size. Like Bogey's not
Hmm.
necessarily the greatest,
Yeah.
biggest defender in the world, but Julian's able to bully him a little bit here, like give him the shoulder and then finish even
And
through
Z
a
didn't even
help
do a good
defender.
job sealing there to get rid of the help defender, but Julian was able to finish over him anyway.
Yeah, so I think his touch around the rim is solid, and like he's got the floater game. He can finish.
I like him getting all the way to the rim too, and not settling for the floater, especially like you're saying, the long floater. If he does start, which seems unlikely at this point, I think that he can, especially if he is playing next to MPJ, like that offense could actually be like actual
Hmm.
molten lava.
Yeah.
But even if he's not starting, like he might end up playing in some of those lineups anyway. I personally think that Russ needs Julian off the bench more than the starters need Julian's offense in the starting unit. Like I think that Julian's skill set can really complement, you know, either role.
Hmm.
Um, and the main questions still remain about the on-ball defense in particular. And Julian said at media day that his goal is to not to be hunted on defense. More hunter hunted analogies. Um, but I don't think that that's enough for that starting shooting guard role when you think about trying to replace what KCP's defensive value was. Not being hunted is not going to be enough. Like you have to make a seriously positive impact in that
Hmm.
role, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Um, but it'll be interesting. I'm excited to see Julian in preseason.
If you're watching, please subscribe. We're trying to get to at least 1,000 subs as quickly as possible. So please subscribe if you're listening. Hit the like button as well. That helps us immensely. Follow us on Twitter and hit the notification bell on YouTube so that you can see all our show announcements as well as on our Click channel on YouTube. And remember, winning is fun and losing sucks.
Let's stop losing.